Julie Todaro of A21 Heart for Freedom is a local effort behind the A21 global movement to bring awareness to sex trafficking. I sit down one-on-one with Julie for a special edition of Quintin's CloseUps. And be sure to download the free Quintin's CloseUps app in your Apple or Google Play stores. Julie Todaro, it's so good to meet you.
Thank you. It's nice to meet you as well.
I appreciate this greatly. I know Kimberly Bowman with Exquisite Communications basically reached out to me to talk to you about your initiative as far as ending sex trafficking in Charleston.
Yes.
And I know that you obviously are a part of A21 Heart for Freedom, the local effort behind the A21 global movement, which brings awareness to human trafficking. And Kimberly says this, she has a few events happening in Charleston in the coming weeks, so she wanted me to connect with you. So here we are.
Thank you.
You're welcome anytime. I want to go to the email you sent me early this morning.
Sure.
And I want to read this letter to the viewers out there. It says this, "Hi friend, did you know that Charleston is ranked the second most sex trafficking city in South Carolina? Sex trafficking, human trafficking, people sold for commodity. I realize these are sensitive and frankly taboo topics, but did you know that there are millions of slaves in the world today? Yes, today. In the 21st century it's modern day slavery. And sadly, only 1% of the victims are ever rescued." Let me take it to the top. Charleston, the second ranked most trafficking city in South Carolina.
That's correct.
How did the holy city become the second largest sex trafficking city in your mind?
A lot of the high-rated traffic cities in the States are going to be specific to interstate routes. So Charleston for us is very centrally located to 26, 85,
Right.
95.
Right.
It's a direct route to all of those locations. In addition, we do have the port. I don't have any specific cases that came out of the port that I'm aware of. I am starting to get involved in learning more every single day, but it kind of makes sense, you know? So with the combination of just all of the logistics, as far as in and out of Charleston, I think that that is how we became that prevalent of a city in that respect. In addition to that, I think the increase in the cases over the years, how it's progressively grown, is because we're not paying attention to the fact that we're the second most trafficked city in South Carolina, right? It's like this dirty little secret that we keep because it is, as the letter says, very taboo to talk about. People don't like to talk about this stuff. People don't like to think about it. So we only think about it when those cases come up and it's like, oh my gosh, that happened here? When we need to be thinking about it before those cases come up, right? So I think a combination of the logistics and just kind of having our head in the sand, so to speak, is how we got here.
Sex trafficking, that is. You obviously say that those particular topics are basically taboo. But when it comes to sex trafficking, what are people talking about?
I don't know that we really talk about it as a community, right? I think that we talk about it on the major media TV stations when the cases happen. Like I don't feel like we're talking about it from a preventive standpoint, from a community standpoint, like we did when drug trafficking was at the center focus of everyone's attention, right? We had programs after programs, not that we shouldn't, but we had programs after programs in respect to, you know, stopping drugs and say no to drugs and commercials and all of that stuff. And that I don't feel like is happening with sex trafficking or human trafficking right now. I think it's slowly, progressively getting there, but I really think that we don't talk about it enough. And I think we don't talk about it enough because it's such a sensitive subject.
And let me go back to the letter. It says this, "Did you know that there are millions of slaves in the world today?" I know this is a complicated question, but how many?
Ooh, that is a complicated question and not one that I could really begin to answer fairly and accurately.
Okay.
I can tell you that for South Carolina, there are 117 cases reported last year. That I can tell you and have confidence in that statistic. I can tell you that, again, Charleston is the second most trafficked city. I can tell you that Greenville is number 1 to that. I can tell you that Atlanta is the main hub for sex trafficking for all of the states. So a lot of close proximity there. I can also tell you that Myrtle Beach for the last 3 years has surpassed any sort of, as far as reported cases, has surpassed even the Super Bowl for the last 3 years. That's Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, which is an hour and a half from us. So we often associate these large events with human trafficking, but Memorial Day, Myrtle Beach is right up there.
That's true.
So scary when you put it into that type of perspective, and when we bring it that close to home, it's really scary.
You touched on this earlier. Obviously, it's a taboo topic, and the cases are not being looked at through the media, through law enforcement in your mind. Okay, why the politics?
Why the politics in respect to the topic?
Right.
I don't know that I would necessarily label it as politics as much as I would label it as just still trying to figure out how to manage such a large enterprise is what this is becoming.
Okay.
Trying to teach law enforcement how to recognize if somebody is being trafficked, like if they pull over in a routine stop, how do we know that individual is or is not being trafficked? They may have found drugs in the car, right? So let's paint this picture. They may have found drugs in the car, and that person gets taken in for drugs. But what if she was happened to be in the car with her parent, right? And how do we get from point A to point B without some proper training of teaching the law enforcement that's what we need to be looking for? It's going to make its way into schools as our students get trafficked. It's going to make its way into schools to how do we identify that if that person's missing? Like, were there any signs leading up to that? Like that type of stuff. I think just education. So I don't know that it's really so much politics as much as it is education and talking about this stuff and educating ourselves, just like we have in the past with drug trafficking, for example.
A21. You said this. A21 is a national nonprofit organization that exists to end modern-day slavery. What is your definition of modern-day slavery now?
So as ugly of a term that is, right? I'm fond, for lack of a better term, of that verbiage in respect to this type of trafficking. Because that is really what it is. Because you also have not just sex trafficking, but you also have labor trafficking, in which individuals are kidnapped or taken, however they get them, they got them at this point in time. They put them in work camps. That's happening right here in our low country. Well, not low country, but it happened in Newberry, where they were mentally challenged individuals and they held them captive and they paid them like 5 cents a day and they were beating on them and they were torturing them to get them to work for really, really cheap prices. Happens constantly. I shouldn't say constantly. Happens enough, let's say that. As same with sex trafficking. Those girls or boys are being beaten on. Their life is being threatened. Their family's life is being threatened. If you run, if you say anything, I'm going to kill your family. Like all that type of stuff is happening. That is a form of bondage. That is what that is. That is somebody putting fear into me or into that individual rather to keep me in bondage. That is slavery.
And I know.
And it's no respecter of persons.
Right.
It's no respecter of color. It's no respecter of age. Like it is modern day slavery for that reason, because it is no respecter of the ancestry of slavery.
And I know that A21 is also going to have a 5K race, I believe, coming up soon.
That's correct. So the local chapter in Charleston, which is a Heart for Freedom.
Right.
So A21 is the global nonprofit.
Sure.
We have started a local chapter in Charleston to advocate and fundraise for their efforts. So on a local level,
Sure.
to your point, is a 5K. It's a walk run. It's more of like a fun walk than anything. We'll have vendors out there. We will have a food truck. We'll have Kona Ice.
Yeah.
Some live music. So lots of activity at Kids Corner to use that type of material to bring awareness to this difficult subject. So my hope is that the community comes out, sees what's going on, and we can give them the message and give them the materials to educate themselves. And that'll be on September 29th.
Wow. And when you think of Heart for Freedom, what does that mean to you personally?
That's a personal name for me. When I chose that team name and that chapter name, I am a survivor of sexual abuse, and for many, many years. And when I got out of that situation, I was in very many aspects held in bondage, and very many emotionally, right? Had no moral compass for how to navigate relationships. Had just a lot of distorted behaviors because of what had happened to me for so many years. And when God finally got a hold of me, and I was paying attention, right? So he can get a hold of you, but you have to be paying attention too.
Right.
So when he finally got a hold of me and I was actually paying attention, my process of healing is where I attribute that freedom that I now have in my heart to walk in who he's called me to be, to walk in the person that he created me to be, as opposed to walking in the person that I was previous to that healing, right? And that's what it is. It's a freedom. It's a freedom of the heart. It's a freedom of your emotions and all of the things that make up body, mind, soul, and spirit, right? That come alive when you get that kind of healing. And that is my hope is that in doing what he's called me to do and walking this out and raising awareness, that we show the love that's behind all of that. And we show that, if there are victims out there are survivors out there of any sort of trafficking or bondage that they may be in, that there are outlets out there and there's people out there that care.
Where's your heart right now?
Oh, wow. Gosh, that's a big question. My heart is with the youth, is with raising awareness to them, being just one more outlet to teach, to have open arms to say, look, you don't have to go on those sites on social media.
Right.
You don't have to connect with those people. Even if you are coming from a difficult background, it doesn't define who you are. It just doesn't. And I really hope that I can bring some light into that age group as they are youth, as opposed to them trying to figure it out when they're in their 30s, because it's just so much harder. So if there is any captive audience of youth speaking, at any time that I get the opportunity to speak, that's what I hope, is that I want to be able to reach them to say, you are God's child.
Yes, indeed. Absolutely. Well, Julie Todaro, thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate this.
Thank you.
You're welcome anytime.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
You too.